Hey everyone, how are you? Hope you've had a good week two. On to week three. Time's already flying in this term, isn't it? We're already, you know, like a fifth of the way through it, which is kind of wild. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope everyone has been working away at their project, which should be, well underway, I guess, for some. Obviously, your project is due in six 6 days, 22 hours from now, I believe. So pretty much 7 days. And I imagine many of you will be working on it this weekend. Just before we started, just before we start, does anyone have any broad questions about the course or anything admin related, just for us to address right at the start? Maybe just to tackle a topic broadly. So if you only have some team members on your project contributing, best thing to do is just to talk to your tutor, send them an email, something like that. Just be like, hey, just wanted to let you know, so and so aren't doing any work. Tell them what you're doing about it, right? Because like part of this whole working with teams is that you need to learn how to actually work with people. In terms of like, if people aren't doing some work and you feel like they should be doing some work, it's not that you're, necessarily right about everything. It's actually on you to try and establish a dialogue and talk to them. So, if you're ever having group problems, email your tutor, tell them what the problem is, tell them what you've done to try and fix it. So yeah. Mihak says, sorry. If iteration 1 isn't completed successfully, does this affect iteration 2? Yes, I guess in a way. You kind of have to finish that work anyway, but iteration 1 compared to iteration 2 is actually, I think, pretty easy, because it's like kind of like a slow ramp up. So my point is, like, in 6 weeks from now, if you guys tried to do iteration 1, you'd do it in a flash comparatively. So even if you don't get anything done, you should still feel like you're able to actually catch up on things really easily. Does the pain stop? Patrick says. Depends what kind of pain it is. Some pain will stop, some pain won't stop. It really depends on the type of pain. Okay, great. And that's oh yeah, and then how often do we need to use the task board? I mean, the task board's how you track tasks, right? So if anyone's doing work or people are assigned work and they're getting through it, then the task board is how you actually track that. Pref says, for iteration 1, do we need to push tests first for the dummy code? I don't know what you mean, tests for the dummy code. That doesn't make any sense to me. Fang Yu says, do we need to change the pass in input error and access error? No, you don't. That's just how that is. You don't need to do anything with the error file at all. So the error file is here. You can just leave those files alone. Kevin says, 2 people in my group has dropped the course. Now we're down to 3 people. What now? Well, you keep going. I mean, so generally it's quite simple. We're comfortable with groups between the size of 3 and 5, and your tutor spends a lot of time looking at your code and your repo and your progress. I get a lot of students kind of emailing me being like, we're in a group of 3 now, so we're not getting as much done. To be honest with you, most of these projects are actually kind of probably like really designed for groups of 3 or 4. In a lot of ways, it's actually really hard to coordinate 5 people working on these. Like genuinely, it's the coordination effort of trying to get 5 people coding and working together. From everything I've seen from 4 terms of this course, kind of compensates a little bit for the extra person power. So it's not really something to worry about. 3 people is more than enough to, like, to get something like this done. It's absolutely adequate. But the short answer is, like, talk to your tutor. If you're actually down to 2, so some people have said, like, we're down to 2. So if you actually think you're down to 2 people, one of 2 things has happened. Either you aren't aware that your tutor's actually fixed that up for you, like you haven't checked your email and they've sent you some emails, or alternatively, somehow you know that you're down to a group of 2 and your tutor doesn't. Like a team member's told you they've dropped, but they haven't told the tutor. So, you know, it's best to talk to your tutor in that case. And the last one before I start, why are some why are some labs labeled challenge this? Well, I mean, not labeled challenge this, so pretty much, you know, some labs are harder than others. Some people find different labs harder than others. We try and use the points to adjust for this, right? Like, so generally harder labs that are worth more points. So, I mean, the short answer is when you start a lab exercise, actually take a look at it, read it first, see how you feel about it. And some of them you'll be like, this isn't worth my time. But in general, most of the labs are listed in order of difficulty. So if you start at the first one in the lab list and you keep going, that's going to be fine. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, it's you know, it's like this standard university student thing to kind of sit around and mope and moan about group projects, but it's like, it's like you're working with people. Sometimes people are going to work at different times. Sometimes people are going to work less. Just, you know, grab it by the horns and go with it. If you have people in your group who you don't think are pulling their weight, talk to them. Because I can guarantee you what actually happens in reality is that often people are just confused. Sometimes it's as simple as like people aren't added to the right channels, or sometimes someone was miscommunicated with something. So just talk to people. It's like simple. Your group should function fine. If it doesn't, talk to your group members and talk to your tutor. That's it. And everything will go fine. Yeah. So let's get on to today. So we've got week 3. We've kind of got 6 lectures and a little bit of like Teamwork Tuesday that we're going to try and do tomorrow. Today we're definitely going to get through these 3 lectures. And then it's a question of whether we make a start on verification and validation. But let's get into a couple of Python lectures. So we're doing 2 bits of Python. All right. I'm just gonna, before I start. So Girachand, everything will go fine. Yeah, right. I admire your positive, endearing attitude, though. Generally speaking, the point is that I've said this like countless times so far. The structure of this course is that if you follow the rules that we set out, then you will be rewarded for the time and effort that you put into the group project, right? So whether you're in a group of 5 where everyone is like getting along, kumbaya, you've all known each other since you were in the womb together, or if you're in a group where for some reason everyone hates each other and nothing's getting done, as long as you follow what we ask you to, which is to communicate with your group and communicate with your tutors and push your work on GitLab, I can assure you that the amount of work you put in effectively will end up giving you the same mark as people who end up in slightly easier situations, for instance. So my point is that no one really needs to particularly stress about how this results and stuff with the group project, because it's designed very intelligently, though obviously there will be little struggles along the way. So everything will go fine in the end. It's just a question of, you know, maybe you'll have to have the occasional awkward conversation with someone, or you know, a little bit of tension. And I think that's the hard part, right? Like, that's the hard part of the major project, is that it exposes you to the reality sometimes of, again, like working with people that are challenging or just work differently to you. Maybe they work at different times, they work in different structured ways. And I try my hardest to rise to challenges as well, even when I don't want to, which is like, every time you come across a difficult group situation, fundamentally, I think it's great to see it as an exercise of training yourself to deal with what you're inevitably going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. Because I can tell you right now too that You know, it's even harder than group members who don't do any work, because group members who do the work and are kind of like, you know, commandos and don't really care what other people say, and they just go and do stuff, and they're all very different challenges. So it's an interesting time, what I would say. Yes, we should just have the entire cohort working on one massive project. That would be awesome. And 700 people coding at once. Panda Guy keeps asking me on the chat how to stay focused. In what context? Like, stay focused, like when and why? And Giri-chan, that makes sense about procrastination. And I procrastinate all the time. I tell people this. I was a terrible student. I work better in the industry because I'm paid and other people rely on me. Being a student's the hardest thing in the world, because you're basically paying someone for the privilege of you doing this. Not to mention the fact that most of what you do, like labs and stuff, is like, if you don't do it, you don't really let anyone down, which is like a hard thing. Money talks. Yeah. I'll just maybe answer Panda Guy's question generally though. My advice to you with any kind of work is to gamify it as much as you can. Even the most procrastinating people, nearly everyone kind of can gamify work. And what I mean by gamifying work is that if you can figure out a way to actually turn what you're doing into something that, like to-do lists are a great example, right? Like to-do lists are basically gamification of what you have to do, right? Rather than just kind of keeping stuff in your head where they can get lost, you want to write stuff down so that you can play the game of crossing them out, right? Just like playing whack-a-mole. So, so as much as you can, like try and break things up. That's the shortest answer I'm going to give you right now. Is if you have a lot of stuff to do and you're procrastinating, break it up, write it down, put it down on paper, turn it into components. The smaller the better, and just start doing them. You can get pretty addicted to getting things done if you can actually put yourself in a situation, you know, where you can turn it into a game. Ken Ann says, if you're lost when figuring out stuck how to do a part of the project, what should you do? Yeah, that's a great question. So fairly simple pecking order. If you feel stuck with stuff, you go talk to your group. Be like, I'm stuck with this. Does anyone have any thoughts? And you can chat about it with your group. If that doesn't yield any results, either because they're busy or they don't know, then you pretty much go to a mixture of the forum, help sessions, or your tutor in project check-ins. And that will depend on where in the week it is. Project check-ins are probably the best place to get help, but the problem is you have a 2-hour block a week, well, 20 minutes for you. So, you know, if your project check-in's on a Friday, it's not very helpful right now. Help sessions are a kind of middle ground there too. And then forum's usually the best place to start getting some help.